The demons of chaos have encroached on Athel Loren, tainting the lands into an ashen waste with their diabolical chaos magic. The Wood Elves have come to defend their lands. Demons have deployed. Here we have Seekers of Slaanesh. We have Demonettes with a Herald of Slaanesh in the front fighting rank. Blood Crushers of Khorne, a demon prince who happens to be wielding a Slaanesh standard as his casting implement, for he is also a level 4 wizard, and Bloodletters. On the Wood Elf side, we have these scouts who have deployed in scout formation, which are Waystalkers, with, Way Watchers, with a Way Stalker leading them. Off to the side, also scout deployments here are our Deepwood Scouts. Off to the sides of the Deepwood Scouts is our Wild Riders. We have this magical blood fountain, which decreases the toughness by 1 of any model who is within 6 inches of it. The Wildwood Rangers fearlessly deployed right next to it. We have this wonderful level 4 caster, this level 4 wizard who is our spell weaver on the on the Wood Elves side. And over here we have some skirmishing war dancers oddly deployed behind a small unit of Glade Guard, looking at the opponents in the distance. Here we have dangerous terrain hill forest. It's woodlands, it's a hill, it's dangerous terrain. Our demon prince has moved. He has cast a spell called Infernal Gateway in order to transport himself 12 inches forward. Bloodletters choose to follow their general into battle. They wheel and then move forward by marching a total of 10 inches. Our Blood Crushers of Khorne choose to march. They're able to march 14 inches up, bearing down on the elves in the distance. Seekers of Slaanesh, on their lithe mounts, march 18 inches forward. Kablamo. The Demonettes on the back by the craggy hills choose to march, and they wheel and then go forward 10 inches. Our demon prince begins to chant and brings forth a phantasmagoria, ripping from the ground, bringing nightmares to the wood elves. But oh, what is this? Our spellweaver turns and musters the green magics of the wood elves to dispel the phantasmagoria. The demon prince casts a vicious doombolt from the pages of dark magic. It is centered right here over our Wildwood Rangers, which goes off, striking 6 of the 10 models. All of them would have been just fine and gotten away, but 2 of them were actually wounded due to the fact that they were weakened by the blood fountain. If they hadn't been by the blood fountain, they would have survived. The spellweaver chants onto the magic winds and summons a plague of rust onto the armor of the Blood Crushers of Khorne. Their usually steadfast armor becomes weak and brittle. Wood elves have only one possible charge they could declare, and that is with the Wild Riders, who must, because they are frenzied. And the Demon Prince has placed himself exactly at the max end of their charge range, meaning they would have to roll very well. And they did. They actually rolled 18 total, or 9 plus 9, and they successfully charged the Demon Prince. The Spellweaver then goes into a march, so that she's facing and has within her front arc the Glade Guard. She then casts, talking to the magic winds of the forests to open up a portal of bramble, transporting the Glade Guard out of harm's way as the Seekers and the Blood Crushers are bearing down. She then has remaining sub-moves. Meanwhile, the war dancers, with the Seekers bearing down on them, try to prepare for the impending charge as well as possible by putting as much room as they can between themselves and the impending charge. Meanwhile, the Wildwood Rangers, no longer having to worry about the Demon Prince bearing down on them, they decide to march. And so they march up outside of the frontal arc of the impending Blood Crushers in order to set themselves up to be able to charge. And so now some of the Deepwood Scouts have spun around and started heading the opposite way while they maintain their 360-degree line of sights on the bloodletters that are charging them down. Meanwhile, these troop of Waystalkers or Waywatchers and Waystalker, they scooted up about 5 inches. They're wrapping around on the bloodletters, chasing them down. And at the end of the turn, this is our board setup. The demons are really pulling in tight on the Wood Elves. And the Wood Elves are doing what they can to maneuver and last as long as possible. The Glade Guard rip off a volley of 5 shots over to the Blood Crushers. Of those 5, only 2 hit, but they hit with Hagbane tips, so they go straight into their armor. Their armor's been rusted by the last plague of rust. Yet, the 6-up armor save that they do have, plus their ward save, totally saves them from any wounds. Next up, our Deepwood Scouts launch off a volley to the bloodletters whilst in retreat. Not actually fleeing, but just turning around and moving and shooting. And anyhow, so at the front row, we have the Lord's Bowmen who had shot off a shot that missed. We had about 5 people at the front row who had completely unobstructed cover, and they shot off 5, and out of those 5, 3 became actual wounds. 2 of them just because of Hagbane tips. And then there's some others that had some partial cover, and they were able to get 1 wound out of their 3 attacks. And then there's a couple over here who really had the opponent has basically full cover on them, so because there's so many friendly units between them and the bloodletters. So they fired off 2, and they obviously didn't get any wounds out of that. But that does mean a total of 4 bloodletters get yanked off the back, falling to a volley of Hagbane tips as the opponent is moving and shooting and running away. A volley of arrows launches off from our Waystalker and our Waywatchers. The Waystalker, the hero of the show, just whiffs it entirely, while the rest are able to peel off 2 more wounds. Next, our Spellweaver chants up a wild spell from the forests and summons a pool of bubbling, boiling water right at the feet of the impending charges from the Demons of Khorne. Next up, the Spellweaver casts a wind blast, where a mighty wind rips soldiers from their regiments and smashes them against the hard earth. 2 of the Seekers are blasted from the combat. The remaining are pushed backwards by the wind, providing even more distance between them and the war dancers they're bearing down on. Now resolving the only combat on the field for this first turn, Wild Riders versus the Demon Prince. Right off the bat, the Wild Riders use their charge to hit with a total of 15 attacks. 5 of them hit and wound and penetrate the armor, meaning he's about to die. But then he does amazingly with his ward saves, and saves all but 1 single wound, meaning he has 3 wounds left. He then returns fire, swinging 5 times, taking out a total of 3 of the Wild Riders. The steeds then try to attack and do what they can, and they are ineffective. In complete awe at their losses, the Wild Riders use their high leadership to give ground a couple inches. The Demon Prince chooses not to pursue, and he instead makes a leadership test in order to attempt to reform. And that is very good. And he simply reforms in place, no longer interested in those Wild Riders, and begins to eyeball instead the flank of the Wildwood Rangers. And so concludes our first 2 turns, or I guess our top and bottom of the first turn of our wild game of Demons of Chaos versus the Wood Elves. You can see our war dancers are here cowering against the Seekers, but the Seekers have had their numbers thinned. Our Spellweaver hangs out with a thin rank of Glade Guard, preparing for a serious onslaught from Blood Crushers, but they'll have to go through a bubbling, roiling, boiling pool of water. Our Deepwood Scouts are over here fleeing while shooting from the Bloodletters, who are rapidly being thinned by the Way Watchers in the distance. And it looks like the one win that the demons really have going for them is it's about to be their turn, and they are seriously in trouble. These Wildwood Rangers are seriously in trouble. And there you have it. There's the board state. And so we move on to the Demons of Chaos turn. During their strategy phase, or actually at their start of turn, we resolve the elemental waters, d6 inches in a random direction, which has already been rolled, and they move directly at the Blood Crushers of Khorne. Pulling on the winds of dark magic, the Demon Prince begins to chant incomprehensible syllables, attempting to cast words of pain, a hex, onto the Wildwood Rangers. Unfortunately, he fails. And so the demons begin their charges. The first charge we resolve are the Seekers of Slaanesh. Blown to bits, down to only 3 models, they finally connect. They're able to roll amazingly and actually get in to close combat. The Seekers of Slaanesh are now lined up into combat with our War Dancers. First we have to resolve our other charge, and it turns out that the Demon Prince has no problem at all, scooting right into a flank charge, right into the flank of the Wildwood Rangers. Now moving on to remaining moves, subphase, our Bloodletters choose to march. They are surrounded by enemies, and so they're forced to make a leadership test just to be able to march themselves. That's no problem for them. They pass their leadership test, and they're able to march out of line of sight from the Waystalkers on their flank and all the way up into the faces of the Deepwood Scouts who have been running. For the next part of our remaining moves, our guys here choose to charge through the bubbling, roiling elemental spell. They then wheel and head this way, keeping the ever mobile and crafty Spellweaver and Glade Guard right in their forward flank, but not so close that they could be too close and get outmaneuvered. This, of course, leaves the rest of the chargers to go through lots of dangerous terrain. Oh, they do take a wound. So we'll take this and set it on here to measure that one of them has a wound on them. Maybe put it on this guy for now. And there you have it. Next up is the Demonettes. Yeah, they'll turn this way, switching them into potential marching order, meaning they can't march this turn. And then they'll just wheel about an inch and then move about 4 inches. We'll just say that that's about that for now. You can see that they've got all kinds of action over there to be thinking about, and Wild Riders to be thinking about. They could maybe get charged by those Wild Riders. And right now they are not in the Wild Riders charge. Now it is time to resolve some combats. We have 2 combats to resolve. The Demon Prince versus the Wildwood Rangers, and the Seekers of Slaanesh versus the War Dancers. Here we'll resolve first. What happened here is that although the Seekers charge and get a faster initiative because of that, these War Dancers always strike first. They come in on an initiative of 10. So they go into a singing dance that increases their number of attacks they get in per unit time, and they actually swing for a whopping 2 times 5 is 10 plus 3 is 13 attacks. Out of those 13 attacks, 2 of them failed to hit, 3 of them failed to wound, 2 hit some ward saves, 6 of them struck home and wounded. And these girls are off the table. And as they plowed through the Seekers and wiped them out with spinning, fanning blades, they followed their own momentum through the Seekers. Through them and then reforming. So that they go back into skirmisher format. We go. I'll keep setting them up. Finally, we resolve the battle between the Demon Prince and the Wildwood Rangers. First, we have to do a little retcon. I had been removing models incorrectly from the back. I just flipped a coin to decide which side they should be aligned on. The first initiative is the Demon Prince, who comes in and swings 5 times, actually is able to wound 2 of the Wildwood Rangers. After that, the Wildwood Rangers swing back. They only get 1 attack, but the one Wildwood Ranger attacking is actually stronger when the opponent has fear, literally having more strength than an extra attack. He swings twice and nearly wounds the Demon Prince, but ultimately does 0 damage. Wildwood Rangers pass their leadership test and give ground 2 inches. Probably about that much. The Demon Prince, realizing he has his advantage against someone he's usually weak to, goes ahead and decides to follow up. So concluding the turn for the Demons of Chaos, we move on to the Wood Elves' turn. And as they go into their strategy phase, their first sub-phase is to start the turn. Elemental Vortex moves 3 inches. Continuing with the Wood Elves' turn. During the strategy phase, the Spellweaver summons up a Plague of Rust upon the impending Demons of Khorne. A wizardly dispel cannot be attempted because the Demon Prince is involved in combat. Demons of Chaos choose not to do a fated dispel. The glimmering armor of the juggernauts of Khorne begins to rust. Our war dancers have skirmished their way up towards the hills so that they've got a good look at the flank of the blood crushers of Khorne. Meanwhile, our spellweaver casts another spell, this time traveling into mystical pathways. She conjures enough magic that a fated dispel is completely impossible, and the demons have no choice but to watch this spell succeed as this unit of 5 Glade Guard disappear into the jungles around them, or the woods around them, and travel over here, reappearing like that. They've got the entire Bloodcrusher's Khorne in their front arc. Our Spellweaver then musters her courage and passes a leadership test in order to march. I just realized I made a mistake, and I need to retcon. Our Spellweaver did not have the Glade Guard in her front arc in order to send them through the mystical pathway. So she would have had to have moved first. Next up is our Wild Riders, who choose to do nothing more than simply reform, getting a good look at the rear end of our Demon Prince. Not looking great for him. We'll see how they fare in the combat phase. Meanwhile, our Waystalker and Way Watchers, they turn a bit, move a few inches, and go up inside of our Dark Rune. But it does have an upper level where they're able to shoot down 360 degrees from anywhere where the base can be measured from. So they have a pretty nice field of view, 32-inch Azray longbow. They can shoot at a couple targets. Meanwhile, over here, we see the musician of the Deepwood Scouts really show his value, because these guys just got done marching, but they started their march right within the sight of some terrifying enemies. And so they performed a leadership test and nearly failed. But the musician gives them +1 to march within the range of those enemies. So they turn their facing a little bit and start putting a little distance between themselves and the blood letters and making their way towards a little more action over here. Next up, our Glade Guard in the shooting phase launch off 5 shots at the Blood Crushers of Khorne. Of the 5, 3 of them trigger Hagbane tips and go straight to potentially wounding them. And with their Plague of Rust, none of their armor helps them. However, they are saved by their ward save on all 3 of those potential wounds. Next up, as the Deepwood Scouts are moving and shooting, they launch off a total of 11 attacks at the Bloodletters. And one of those 11 attacks are from the Lord's Bowman, who has a 5 ballistic skill instead of just 4. Of those 11 attacks, thanks to Hagbane tips, 2 of them are actually able to hit and wound right into the armor and wards. If it wasn't for Hagbane tips, they apparently wouldn't have gotten anything through to armor. But then the demons are able to save 1 on armor and 1 on ward save. The Bloodletters are just fine. Shooting from the Dark Rune is the Waystalker and his Waywatchers. However, they're only able to get 5 models to shoot from up here instead of all 6. And so, with their 5 shots, the Waystalker tries to pick out the, what's he called? The Blood Reaper, the champion of the unit. He fails, he misses entirely. However, the other 4 shooting Way Watchers are able to pick off 1 demon on the side. There we go. Alright, next up we come over here, and our Spellweaver, because of the way she's facing, cannot cast her magic missile at anybody. She can, however, recast her magical vortex. So she recasts this guy entirely, and now the nature's boiling water bath pops up directly in front of the Blood Crushers of Khorne. Finally, we resolve this combat between the Wildwood Rangers, hardened by the most dark and dangerous portions of Athalor, and they are prepared. They're the best bred wood elves for this exact sort of combat. And yet, they find themselves unable to really fight efficiently, 1 model at a time on the flank. The Demon Prince has the highest initiative and cleaves to the 1 single Wildwood Ranger, swings back. He gets 2 attacks because he's fighting something that has fear or terror, and he also has a higher strength because he's fighting something with fear or terror. And he swings, and unfortunately, the Demon Prince is able to save. As the combat resolution is resolved, our Wildwood Rangers give ground 2 inches. Our Demon Prince chooses not to pursue. Instead, he will reform and prepare for his next big adventure. And so concludes the turn for the Wood Elves. Here's the board state after that turn. War Dancers, Blood Crushers of Khorne, Demonettes on their way to march over that way. We've got the Wildwood Rangers, who have just gotten absolutely shellacked by the Demon Prince, and the Demon Prince is on his way to the Wild Riders. These Glade Guard are over here by the Blood Fountain. Deepwood Scouts are eyeballing the Bloodletters, and the Waystalker with his Waywatchers are all and housed inside the dark runes. So to start off, we have to resolve at the start of turn our summoned elemental spirit, which moves a random 3 inches. This has all been rolled off camera, right? So this thing rolls over everybody and pops out the other side right here. It then does a bunch of damage. It does 5 strength 4 hits, which actually kills this blood crusher. And does 1 wound of damage to another one. Now we move on to the rest of the strategy phase. The Demons of Chaos did attempt to cast Word of Pain. Our Demon Prince attempted to cast that onto the Wild Riders, but he did not get his casting value. It's time to declare some charges. First up, the obvious charge. And the Blood Letters, although this is almost definitely a bad idea, they are going to declare a charge. They've been traipsing around this field getting shot to pieces, so they're giving it a shot. Those are our only charges. Our Demon Prince begins his charge, but the Wild Riders respond by fleeing. So that's as close as he gets. Wild Riders are out of there. Over here we resolve the charging Bloodletters. So they choose to stand and shoot. Now they have Hagbane tips. So if out of these 11 shots they can just roll 3 6s, this unit disappears. They'll get some ward saves, but that's it. But that doesn't happen. They shoot terribly. Only 1 gets through hitting and wounding, and then these guys save on ward saves. And then they also make their charge roll. So, inward we go. Kablamo. Alright, our Demons of Khorne, our Bloodletters, are now in nice melee contact with a bunch of bunched up skirmishing Deepwood Scouts. Very cool. Over here, we have some Marching Order Demonettes. I didn't turn them all to face. I only turned to the one unit, or the one character at the front to kind of show they're facing this way. So now that they're in marching order, they go ahead and march, triple their movement speed. I already pre-measured. Should be right about there. Triple their movement speed. They go 15 inches, hoping to scare these Waywatchers out of their position of archery where they can hit pretty much everything on the field. The Blood Crushers of Khorne begin their movement on the dangerous terrain. And so they take their dangerous terrain test and they fail it. This guy only had 1 wound left, and he is off the frickin' battlefield. He then passes his leadership test in order to march. So there we go. He marches all the way up here. He might be all alone, but he can take down 5 Glade Guard. Time for the magic phase for the Demons of Chaos. The Demon Prince musters up his magic in order to hit the Wild Riders with a Doom Bolt, but he miscasts and barely controls his power, which means that it's easy for the Fated Dispel from the Wood Elves to dispel it, and it doesn't go off at all. Furthermore, having barely controlled that power, the Demon Prince cannot cast again for the rest of the magic phase. Alrighty. Time to resolve this combat where our Bloodletters charged from a pretty good distance and got a big initiative boost thanks to that. So they swing first, and they actually destroy 3 Deepwood Scouts. Deepwood Scouts swing back, and with their armor bane, they're actually able to get through one of these demons, leaving him with only a ward save, which he fails, and the rest are all misses. So we're left like this, but the Deepwood Scouts do have a standard bearer, which improves their combat results a little bit. And unfortunately, the demons, not only do they have the greater number of inflicted wounds, they also have close order. Our Deepwood Scouts fail, and I've already done their break test. They not give ground, but fall back in good order. Kablamo. So concludes the demon's turn, and you can see they did some good things. Able to start closing in on these Glade Guard finally. They lost a Bloodletter, but able to finally score a couple kills here. Demonettes are finally getting somewhere where they could maybe be in some kind of combat. Demon Prince is chasing people away. They did some things. So starting off the Wood Elves turn, at the start of turn, we have to do the mechanic for the traveling elemental whirlwind here. So this guy moves 2 inches this way within an inch of the Wildwood Rangers, getting perilously close to them. And then we move on to the strategy phase where our caster once again, our spell weaver once again decides to cast Plague of Rust on this poor guy. And that happens successfully. The Demon Prince too far away, and the opponents choose not to. And so we'll just go right into movement. And then we'll see what that looks like in a second. I just realized that in the last combat with these guys, the Wood Elves actually had high ground. Looking back, though, it wouldn't have made a difference the way that they rolled and everything. It would have given them just one more combat result. They still would have fallen back in good order. So looking over here, our Wild Riders make a leadership test to summon the courage to continue marching while having all these demons of Slaanesh out on their tail and the only two amongst them. And they make the wise choice. And after that, because they're open order and all that, they're quick. They have quick turn. Even after marching, they're allowed to pivot 90 degrees. And look at that, how the tables turn. These Wildwood Rangers would love to just march and use their march speed to wheel right around and get a good charge angle on this Blood Crusher. Unfortunately, that would put them through the dangerous terrain. They do this sort of inefficient thing where they turn 90 degrees, which costs a quarter of their movement, and then they will also turn again later, so in total they're only going to get to move half their movement. So they move 2.5 inches. What is that here? Boop. And then after moving 2.5 inches, they then turn again. Yes. And they are technically they've got, I think, the majority of that Blood Crusher of Khorne in their front arc. And anyway, next, our War Dancers march 10 inches from back here, and they bear down on the remaining Blood Crusher, but they must pass over this dangerous terrain of the hill. Luckily, they're, I can't remember what it's called, some sort of special rule they have. It makes it so they get to, it's very difficult for them to die as they go over these hills. They get to re-roll if they almost die. Yet, one of them dies anyhow. Really rolled a lot of ones there. Our Spellweaver, who was over here just a second ago, she tried to cast Travel Mystical Pathway, but she failed. So then she marched over here. We then concluded the movement phase. We go into the shooting phase, and she shoots. She scores. No, she casts Wind Blast, which hits this guy very hard. It's not dispelled. It hits for 5 strength, 5 hits. He's got rusted armor, and on top of that, Wind Blast has armor penetration 1. So he gets no armor saves despite normally having 4 up armor saves, and his ward saves fail. So he is Wind Blasted out of here. Alright, the only shooting to do on the Wood Elves' turn, actually, aside from the magic that just happened, is these Way Watchers and Way Stalkers who are nestled up in this dark rune. They do all kinds of shooting onto this Demonette army, and this Demonette army is loaded up with special characters. There's a whole command group, musician, champion they call it, and also a Demon Herald of Slaanesh. And so everybody misses up here pretty horribly, except for one sweet sequence of rolls from our Waystalker, who, using his Hawkeye Archer rule, is able to snipe out the champion. So this unit, oh, she's headless now. That sucks. This unit no longer has a champion. All right, we resolve this combat. The Bloodletters swing, and they do destroy one Deepwood Scout. Deepwood Scouts who swing back, and they actually scored 2 wounds, but since I made a mistake on last combat, and they got a wound that they weren't supposed to because I accidentally gave them Armor Bane, the Armor Bane is on their bow and arrow, not on their melee weapons. So instead of giving them 2 wounds, I only gave them 1, but then the demons lose combat resolution due to the musician who's a tiebreaker here. This musician right here breaks the tie and says we win this combat. So the demons, they don't ever run and flee. They have demonic instability. And they fail that roll badly. And they all pop and disappear into the oblivion, sucked back into the aether from whence they came. Back to the brass citadel. But as we move on to the demon's turn, we find that they only have these 2 units left. They really got their asses kicked. The Wood Elves still have the Spellweaver, the War Dancers, Wildwood Rangers, some Glade Guard, Deepwood Scouts, Waystalker with Way Watchers, and a little bit of Wild Riders. It is technically the Demon's turn. They deserve to go again and see what they can get done, but I'm just going to call it here. I think the Demons are going to concede. If we were to add up some victory points right now, it would be pretty overwhelming. So I'm not even going to do the math. I think we're going to call it a resounding Wood Elf victory. Yeah, way to go, Wood Elves.